Now we're getting to one of my favorite chapters, and I'm sure it's going to be a lot of yours because it's all about money. So in this first section, we're going to learn about simple and compound interest. So for example, anytime you invest money, and so like if you have a savings account, you'll get some interest. If you take out a credit card, that's usually compound interest. Mortgages, any type of loans or savings accounts or investment accounts usually accrue some type of interest. So we're going to learn about all of those things today. We're going to first start talking about simple interest. So in a simple interest account, interest is earned each year on the initial amount only, so that initial deposit. And you're going to see that deposit called the present value, which we're going to denote as PV. And the reason we're doing that is because in Excel and Google Sheets, that's the type of notation that they use for this. And I want to try to be consistent. The accumulated balance, so the balance you'll have after a certain amount of time, is called the future value, which we'll denote as FV. So suppose that you deposit $1,000 into an account that earns 5% interest. How much would you earn in interest each year? Okay, so you're going to see on the right-hand side of this slide, I have Desmos up. So this is the Desmos Scientific Calculator. Luckily, you guys are allowed to use the calculator as well as Google Spreadsheets or Excel or Desmos to calculate a lot of this stuff. So if we're earning 5% interest, that means I'm earning 5% of $1,000. Now remember in math, we'd write 5% as 0.05. The word of is multiplication, and then multiplied by 1,000, and that's going to end up giving us $50. So this would mean that we would earn $50 in interest each year. So $50 earned in interest each year. So every year in a simple interest account, you earn the same amount of money because it's only on what you started with. When we get to compound interest accounts, that's when instead we would add that 50 in. So if we, for example, were doing a compound interest, then after 1 year, we would have 1,050. So in a compound interest account, instead of it always just being on the initial value like a simple interest, now for that next year, we'd be taking 5% of 1,050. So you end up earning more and more and more. Or if this is, for example, a credit card or a house loan or student loans, which are all compounded interest, you end up owing more and more with interest. So it's always better to pay those off earlier, and we'll talk about how to do that in a later section, so stay tuned. But for right now with simple interest, to figure this out, it's just you take the rate and you multiply it by the initial amount, which is the present value, times the number of years. So in this case, it was just 1 year, which is why it wasn't written there. All right, let's go through and learn some more specific formulas for this. So we just showed how we can figure out the amount of interest we're earned, and that was by taking that present value times the interest rate, which we're going to denote as R, times the time, so the number of years. But if I wanted to figure out that future value, and remember that future value is that end amount, I also have to add what I initially started with. So that's why on the other slide, we took, to figure out how much I would have total, I took the amount that I earned, which I found by using this formula, that was the $50, and then I added it to what I started with, which was $1,000. So again, defining all these variables, FV is the accumulated account balance or the end balance. PV is the present value or initial deposit. R is the interest rate. T is the amount of time interest is earned in years, months, or etc., matching the time period of the interest rate.